Welcome to the News Roundup for Wednesday, December 17, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. A Trump administration cabinet member calling for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to resign as pressure from his state's massive fraud scandal intensifies. Representative Ilhan Omar seeking to kick a Republican lawmaker out of Congress for making inflammatory comments while ICE accuses her of demonizing their agency as part of a PR stunt. And incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani faces a massive budget shortfall in New York City as he prepares to implement his socialist agenda. Also, a U.S. senator standing his ground after communist China hits him with a $50 billion lawsuit. And this, the greatest rock and roll band in the entire world. Yeah, they pulled the plug on their upcoming tour due to the failing health of their legendary guitarist. All this and a bunch more is coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with this. A top Trump administration cabinet member is now calling for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to immediately step down from his post due to his failed handling of the massive welfare fraud crisis, which is overwhelming his state. In a blistering letter calling for Walz to resign, our nation's education secretary claims that Walz's utter lack of oversight and abuse of his state's entire welfare system has allowed fraudsters from all over the world, especially Somalia, to establish what she calls a beachhead of criminality in our country. I don't know what beachhead means, but I like the way it sounds. Additionally, she says her department has now unearthed yet another massive fraud scam in Minnesota, this one dealing with fake ghost college students who have received millions of dollars in federal grants and loans without ever attending a single class. She goes on to accuse Walz of being completely asleep at the wheel while enormous amounts of fraud continue to spread throughout nearly every federal assistance program under his watch, all while doing absolutely nothing about it. Have no fear, America. Tim Walz is on the job. In conclusion, the secretary urging Walz to stop defrauding the American public, begin taking accountability for his actions, and do what's best for the people of Minnesota by stepping aside and letting more capable leadership take the reins. In the meantime, Walz is also facing boatloads of additional pressure from the Agriculture Department, which is now demanding that the governor recertify all of his state's SNAP recipients in the next 30 days in order to make sure they're genuine U.S. citizens who actually deserve to receive benefits. Not to be left out, the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, launching a thorough investigation into how Minnesota spent billions of dollars in federal social service funding earmarked for children and families. They're kicking things off by ordering the Walz administration to turn over a detailed list of everyone involved with either handing out or receiving benefits, including personal information such as names, addresses, social security numbers as well. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Just last week on this very program, and several times since, I've personally called on the governor of Minnesota, the less than competent failed vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, to clear off his desk, pack up his bags, surrender his goofy ID badge, and simply go home. Well, for some bizarre reason, this guy, the Timinator, has refused my request. But now a Trump administration bigwig is following my lead and telling Time's Up Tim to turn in his 2 weeks' notice. Brief update on something we call Minnesota mania. The level of fraud on a variety of fronts, which has gone down under the expert governorship of the fraudulator Tim Walz. It's overwhelming, inexcusable. It's downright embarrassing. Democrats, you gotta love them. Joe Biden, for example, was a deep slumber during the bulk of his presidency, and when his party revoked his resolute desk, they propped up another disaster in Kamala Harris. And she's so bright, she's the one who drafted this guy, Tim Walz, to go on the campaign trail with her. Well, they've done it again. They gave Terrible Timmy 2 terms in the governor's mansion, and on his watch, it's been a nightmare of fraud at taxpayers' expense, due to the tune of, according to some estimates, more than $1 billion. And the more we dig, the more we continue to find. This is not over. Now, Producer David, to be fair, when you're pulling down 6 figures and you get a free house, walking away can be enormously complicated. What are you thinking? Should he stay or should he go now?
Well, Bill, I don't think he's going anywhere right now, but the bigger question is whether or not he's going to withdraw from seeking a third term.
Yeah, how can you in good conscience come back and say, elect me for another term? That's mind-boggling to me. In final word, the state right now should begin impeachment process. Begin immediately and do all you can to rapidly install a new governor. It's for the future of your state. It's really as simple as all that. It will stay on topic a bit longer and turn our attention to another troubled Democrat from Minnesota. Yeah, that one, Representative Ilhan Omar. No matter how hard she tries, the Congresswoman from Minneapolis, well, she just can't seem to get out of her own way. And now she's picking a fight with yet another lawmaker in Washington. According to reports, Omar calling for Republican congressman from Florida to be kicked out of Congress, and entirely because of a number of derogatory comments he apparently made during a closed-door House committee hearing in which apparently he attacked mainstream Muslims. Now, among his controversial views, that those Muslims have declared war on America, and that as a result, all Muslim immigrants to America, they should be immediately deported. In response to those comments, Omar has now sent out a mass email in which she calls her fellow lawmaker a disgusting, violent racist who's unfit for office. Furthermore, her message goes on to accuse the congressman of showing his true colors by calling her a terrorist, issuing thinly veiled death threats against her, and making what she calls a plainly genocidal statement. That's a bit of a lofty claim. Now, for his part, the congressman is a first-time representative named Randy Fine, and he says he looks forward to Omar bringing her resolution to the House floor so they can engage in an open debate about national security. He also claims that Omar and her band of Somali scam freeloaders, his words, will do anything they can to stop President Trump from holding them accountable for their schemes, and that if anyone should be expelled from Congress, it's the Congresswoman from Minnesota herself. In the meantime, the Department of Homeland Security denying Omar's claim that ICE agents recently racially profiled and pulled over her son in Minneapolis. DHS now says that ICE has no record of that incident taking place at all, and that the Congresswoman is merely trying to demonize their agencies as part of some kind of goofy PR stunt. Well, final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. To quote that fabulous hip-hop group Run DMC, Madam Omar, you be illin'. Hey, Dave, you get the tie-in there? You be Ilhan and Ilhan Omar?
Well done, Bill. Very well done.
Pretty well done. Every now and again, I get one in. Come on, Omar. You represent Minnesota's 5th District, and not to be outdone by the governor of your state, an enormous amount of fraud has happened in your community. The community you represent, and by some estimations, $250 million has been purloined and or pilfered. With that debacle on your resume and a huge mess to clean up, you're instead going to go after Florida Representative Randy Fine? Let Florida voters tend to the fine gentleman in Florida. And I don't want you to waste a single moment of your precious time on that one. You've got much bigger fish to fry. Hey, by the way, we see what you're trying to do, but deflecting from your district to his will not fix the mess in your own backyard. And you'd do wise to simply stay on the trail. Oh, and yeah, there's more. There's always more. As you may know by now, Border Czar Tom Homan, we've talked about this a couple of times right here. He says investigators are also looking into reports which suggest that Omar may have at one time kind of married her brother to enter the U.S. Now, if that's true, she could face prison time, a $250,000 fine, and even deportation. So to the illicitious one, Ilhan Omar, you've lost your way. Your fellow Minnesotans have abandoned their faith and trust in you. People all over the country are hugely displeased. We're on to you. And so, this guy, 47, yeah, you're on his radar as well. Now, Producer Davey, legit concern or a cheap shot at deflection? What are you thinking?
Well, Bill, I think it's a bit of both. Look, her job is to stick up for her constituents, and apparently that's what she's doing here, but she's got her hands full at home in Minnesota.
Yeah, this is kind of like a guy who drives around town in a stolen, beat-up, smog-polluting 83 Pontiac, one with bald tires and a cracked windshield, all while complaining about the other guy whose car, maybe not in great shape, has just a simple dented fender. Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about that dented fender. You got plenty to fix in your very own lane. And again, you got to stay on the trail. Change things up just a bit now. Pivot to the Big Apple, where incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani's promised to hand out a bunch of freebies to eager New Yorkers about to come face-to-face with a considerable reality check. According to a new report, Mamdani is stepping into a brutally challenging financial situation in New York City, including a budget shortfall of more than 2 billion clams, and that's expected to grow exponentially over the next several years. Now, look, we warned you about this a long time ago. We saw it coming here in the News Roundup newsroom. Additionally, he is staring at the possibility of substantial cuts in federal funding, as well as protracted and difficult contract negotiations with some of the city's largest municipal unions. You weren't counting on that, were you? As one Democratic strategist points out, Mamdani, he'll be confronting a number of massive problems as soon as he walks through the door. And that's going to happen before he even tries to wrangle any additional funds to support his goofy socialist agenda. In case you're not aware, the 34-year-old was elected to lead New York City after pledging to spend at least $10 billion, all on his progressive makeover. And he says he hopes to raise some of that dough through massive tax hikes on both corporations and the wealthy. Well, there's some fine strategy for you. However, the new fiscal report shows that over the past few years, the city's expenses have been far outweighing their revenues, in large part due to the number of asylum seekers who have been arriving in the area. Now, in the meantime, this guy Mamdani is standing behind his pledge to make things better for working New Yorkers, and he's vowing to use every single tool at his disposal, including, by checking this out, seizing poorly run apartment buildings from bad landlords and putting them under city control. Hey, look, if this infuriates you, and it should, speak up. Leave a comment for us here. I'm up in arms about this. This is just brutal. A final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This marvelous Mamdani character has been on our radar for some time now, and months ago, we warned all of New York that this guy's a charlatan, a fake and a phony who'll promise you anything as a means to an end to score a mayor's salary, which, by the way, is about $260,000 a year, and, of course, he also gets the keys to this place, Gracie Mansion. Yeah, it was a fun campaign. Ran around town talking about city-owned grocery stores, free universal childcare, free rides on all the buses, rent freezes, and so much more. All sounds kind of nifty and appetizing, and it makes great fiscal sense until the bill comes due to pay for all the free stuff. Well, this is where Mamdani, in his Robin Hood hat, yeah, look at that goofy hat, really shines, and to pay for it all, simply tax the corporations and the moneyed-up class. Yeah, it's a novel idea. Rob from the rich and give to the poor. That's never happened before. Unfortunately, there will never be enough tax revenue to fund his poorly thought-out scam. Well, look, it's not all bleak, and there's this. I honestly believe that Zohran the Great, Momsy Cakes, truly believes in affordable housing. In fact, when he's sworn in, he'll rapidly move into Gracie Mansion, the mayor's mansion, where he'll live in luxury, and all on the city's dime. Housing cannot be more affordable than that. He just scored himself a free house. Now, producer Davey, future Governor Mamdani or one-term failed Mayor Mamdani, what say you, sir?
Well, Bill, I say the obstacles are certainly piling up against him. And if he has any hope of succeeding at all, he's going to have to come up with some money somewhere.
Yeah, this is a mess. Hey, New York, soon you will be experiencing something we all know very affectionately called buyer's remorse. The numbers, they're just not adding up, and things are going to get real dicey real quick. And you'll remember that we told you about this. We told you it's coming right down the pike. Turning now to a developing story involving an enormous $50 billion lawsuit, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Chinese communist regime. A U.S. senator from Missouri now refusing to apologize and doubling down on his claims that China unleashed COVID on the entire world following the announcement that the communist regime is suing him for tens of billions of dollars. The lawmaker says Beijing is retaliating against him because when he was Attorney General of Missouri, he filed a lawsuit that eventually won a $24 billion judgment against the Chinese government for withholding information concerning COVID-19 and failing to contain the outbreak. Now, a number of organizations controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, including the infamous Wuhan lab, which is allegedly the original source of COVID, suing the senator right back. They claim his original lawsuit damaged all their reputations, and they're accusing him of making up lies and spreading malicious slander. In the meantime, the senator says his team is busy translating all the paperwork, that it's all just a bunch of sour grapes on the part of the CCP, and that if they expect him to apologize, they're going to be waiting for a heck of a long time. Now, a couple of additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And first up, President Trump says that an Israeli-American megadonor has offered him $250 million to run for a third term in the White House. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, warning that unruly passengers who act up on airports, in airports, or on the aircraft could face a staggering $44,000 fine. And the president orders a total blockade of all oil tankers which are either entering or leaving Venezuela. Now, a quick gander at a bit of rock and roll showbiz news, and check this one out. The Rolling Stones calling off their planned 2026 tour, and all because of legendary guitarist Keith Richards. Yeah, according to reports, Keith is 82 years old. He's been dealing with arthritis for years, and now it's gotten to the point where he simply can't commit to that much time on the road. Yeah, sad day in showbiz when Keith Richards calls in sick. And now the Stones are going to be out of commission for a short time. But, by the way, before he joined Mick and the boys, nobody knows this, he was actually a solo act. And one time he called in sick just minutes before his very first live show. And producer Davey, that was back in 1834. And I'm not saying he's old, I'm just saying he gets sick every once in a while. So I need you, producer Davey, to cut the guy some slack. Yes?
Yeah, Bill, cut the guy some slack.
Cut him some slack. Cut him a break. And meanwhile, another 80-year-old rock star showing no sign of slowing down at all. Singer Rod Stewart says that even though large-scale tours, kind of a thing of the past, he currently has no plans to retire ever. He says he still loves what he does, that he remains fit enough to rock out on the stage, and that best of all, he still has a full head of hair. Well, it might not be his hair, but he still has a full head of hair. I'll sign off on that. Here's the deal. Rod Stewart, he did not invent rock and roll, but some would argue that Rod Stewart, he perfected it. Still got the goods. He can still rock the crowds, but for crying out loud, he's pushing 80. And I think it's time to remove Do You Think I'm Sexy from the set list. A little more Maggie May and maybe a little less Do You Think I'm Sexy. And finally, a large number of popular musicians lining up for a chance to perform at a star-studded tribute concert for the one and only Billy Joel. I love this guy. They call him the Piano Man. The spectacular celebration scheduled to take place just a few months from right now in New York City's Carnegie Hall. And dozens of well-known recording stars expected to perform. It's a big show. I'll tell you, nobody doesn't like Billy Joel, and he's been rocking the planet for check this out, more than a half a century. From Piano Man, the first big hit, to Just the Way You Are, to duets with Ray Charles, Elton John, and more. You just can't beat Billy Joel. And by the way, little known fact, Billy Joel, or Bill, was actually named after me, your News Roundup host, Bill Thomas. I feel pretty good about that, Davey.
Well, Bill, you're completely wrong about that, unfortunately. Billy Joel was born years before you were around.
Oh, man, you take away my thunder. All right, now it is time for us to call it a wrap on the Wednesday edition, the midweek edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day right here on the program, we always like to share with you a very notable quote. And these profound words come to us today from Orville Wright, who said, and by the way, is that the popcorn guy, Davey? Orville Wright?
No, Bill, that's Orville Redenbacher.
Orville Redenbacher. This is a different Orville. Orville said, if we all worked on the assumption that what is accepted as true is really true, there would be little hope of advance. Mr. Wright was an American aviation pioneer who, along with his brother Wilbur, is widely credited with building and flying the world's very first airplane. It wasn't a Cessna 172 like the one you're seeing right there, but it wasn't half bad. Their earliest successful flights took place near Kitty Hawk, as in North Carolina, on this very day back in 1903. And with that, our time is up. We're going to fly on out of here. Have an awesome day. Stay safe. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit that little subscribe button right over yonder, and that'll help you make sure you never miss even a single episode of the Big Roundup. With that, we'll dim the lights, fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.